Virus's pride was undermined by Rancho, the battle between teacher and student. Principal Virus is a man of great pride, always proud of his principles and educational methods. He does not allow anyone to surpass him, for he believes that only the first person to set foot on the moon is remembered by the world, and only the top-ranked student at the university receives the prestigious astronaut pen from the principal. However, his encounters with Rancho have repeatedly damaged his self-esteem. From their very first meeting, Rancho embarrassed Virus in front of the entire freshman class by dismissing the value of the pen that Virus held in high esteem. Rancho didn't stop there. He also lectured Virus in the lecture hall in front of students, and even made a playful scene that left Virus humiliated in front of the minister, a figure whose opinion Virus deeply valued. For someone with such high pride, public humiliation is an immense affront, and Rancho managed to disgrace Virus in front of the crowd not once, but 3 times. It was unbearable humiliation. Rancho even prompted Virus to accept a challenge, resulting in Virus's beard being shaved. Virus considered his beard a symbol of dignity, a suit of armor that formed the image of an authoritative, self-respecting educator. He once remarked that, without a beard, it's like being undressed, leaving him feeling exposed in front of the students. This further deepened the conflict between Virus and Rancho. Rancho did not only criticize the educational philosophy that Virus cherished, but also engaged in playful antics, like sneaking in with his friends to eat free food at Virus's daughter's wedding. The tipping point was when Rancho stole the exam paper Virus had crafted. This was the final straw, causing Virus to explode in anger after all the resentment he had built up. Virus lost his composure, struck Rancho with an umbrella, and announced the expulsion of all 3 friends. The battle between Rancho and Principal Virus is not a clash of good versus evil, nor between a bad person and a good one. Instead, it is a confrontation of 2 forces stemming from 2 different ideologies. Rancho, though just a freshman, possesses immense inner strength. At night, he defeated an upperclassman. By day, he stood his ground against a professor when expelled from class. He exposed Pia's fiancé as someone who values only status. He foiled Chatter's attempts to distract other students during an exam, rescuing Raju. Even the exam proctor was forced to accept Rancho's antics without being able to punish him, as Rancho mixed up the test papers in front of him and then ran away. Rancho is ready to fight for what he believes is right. Anyone who confronts Rancho is eventually outwitted by his intelligence and quick thinking. Even though he is the head of the university with supreme authority, after a few confrontations, Principal Virus no longer dared to face Rancho directly, and instead called Farhan and Raju to apply indirect pressure. Virus even had to take blood pressure medication because of Rancho. The conclusion of the teacher-student battle. Virus could not deny Rancho's talent, especially when his position as valedictorian was clear proof. However, Virus still refused to acknowledge Rancho because of his mischievous behavior and his contrary beliefs about education. Only when Rancho helped deliver Virus's daughter's baby in an emergency using a vacuum cleaner did Virus truly admire Rancho's quick thinking and selflessness in saving lives. Rancho saved Virus's grandchild, compensating for all grievances Virus had previously suffered. Being a person with a sense of morality and understanding, Virus ultimately put aside his ego to do what he needed to do. Virus chased after Rancho to retract the expulsion and handed him the astronaut pen, a prestigious gift meant for an outstanding student that Virus had been saving for 32 years. Yet, his pride made it difficult for Virus to hand over the pen easily. He yelled at Rancho with an air of superiority, saying, "You were wrong. You were wrong," as a way of emphasizing that he was the one who was right, the worthy one, the superior one, and that he was never wrong. This was the final display of Virus's inner struggle, as inside he had officially acknowledged Rancho's talent and virtue, while outwardly still trying to protect his pride. Admitting Rancho's worth was a brave and difficult act for someone as prideful as Virus. Once he did what needed to be done, he cried and looked up with a relieved sigh, as though releasing a heavy burden from his heart. Is filial piety simply obedience and pleasing parents? When one becomes an adult, how much of what parents advise is truly right for their children? If listening to parents leads to an unhappy life or even tragedy like Pia's brother's death, can that truly be considered filial piety? Many parents impose their dreams and ambitions on their children, wanting them to follow the path they envision. It's essential to differentiate between true loyalty and blind loyalty, between true filial piety and blind filial piety. Filial piety does not mean abandoning personal happiness to please parents blindly. Pia's brother's story illustrates how not living true to oneself can have serious consequences for both the individual and the family. He tried to meet his father's expectations by studying to become an engineer, even though he lacked passion and real aptitude for it. Under the immense pressure of his father's expectations, he gradually lost his joy, motivation, and purpose in life. Ultimately, the failure and sense of hopelessness drove him to take the extreme step of ending his life. Pia's brother's tragedy didn't end with his passing. It left profound pain for his father and family members. The father, despite his love and desire for the best for his child, couldn't foresee that the pressure he imposed would lead to such heartbreaking consequences. When a person lives under pressure, constantly forcing themselves to meet others' expectations and not living true to themselves, it can lead to stress, discouragement, and even resentment. These negative emotions not only affect their own mental state, but gradually prevent them from genuinely connecting with those around them. Happiness distances itself, potentially causing harm and loss for those closest to them. Through this story, we see that a person's happiness and peace are foundational to maintaining sincere and harmonious family bonds. One cannot give what they don't have. Living happily and authentically is the best way to bring joy and peace to loved ones. When we are satisfied with our own lives, that spirit naturally spreads to family members, allowing them to feel reassured and share in our happiness. Advice from parents or anyone else, even Rancho, should only be taken as a reference. The final decision is ours to make. We are the ones who choose and bear the highest responsibility for our lives. Don't ask what your parents have done for you. Instead, ask, what have you done for yourself? If evil is not condemned, it will tend to grow and spread. Although Virus is rigid, he still harbors compassion and has an inner voice of conscience guiding him toward what is right. This is evident when he couldn't hide his sadness and remorse at his student's funeral, as his conscience spoke up within him. Deep inside, he was partially awakened by witnessing the impact of his rigid, mechanical, and conformist approach. Virus's rigid, stereotypical thinking also shows in his expectations for his children. His son must become an engineer and his daughter a doctor. Only when Pia brought out her brother's suicide note and bluntly told Virus that her brother's death was a suicide driven by the pressure of his imposed dreams did Virus snap to attention. Pia even said it wasn't just a suicide, but a form of murder. At this moment, Virus was dealt a severe blow, shattering his rigid pride. The shock from Pia's words made him realize the truth, prompting him to decide not to impose his dreams on his grandchild, allowing them to pursue their own passion. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "The world suffers not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of good people." Pia bravely confronted her father and openly resisted the impositions he placed on her. In contrast, Mona showed weakness, not daring to speak up even when she knew it was necessary. To help someone realize an issue, clear and persuasive evidence is required, like Pia used with her father. She presented it briefly and decisively, using the letter as concrete evidence to assert her point. Pia's honesty and determination made Virus listen. Rancho has a knack for using illustrative examples, as seen when he helped Pia realize her boyfriend was only concerned with appearances. But with Virus, Rancho didn't succeed in this approach. At Lobo's funeral, Rancho began to blame Virus, accusing him of causing his friend's suicide. This perspective was filled with subjective judgment, expressing Rancho's personal opinion. In the principal's office, Rancho shifted from blaming Virus to criticizing the education system. He seemed set on starting a complex, drawn-out debate with a man as prideful as the principal. Virus felt this was an attack on the education system he believed in. Rancho's arguments were largely subjective, which only made Virus less inclined to listen to what Rancho had to say. With his conservative nature, high self-esteem, and authority as a principal, Virus quickly cut Rancho off, not allowing him to explain or argue, as he didn't want anyone disrupting the system he had built. Virus even dragged Rancho into the lecture hall, intending to publicly humiliate him and use his authority to overpower him. Ultimately, rather than a dialogue, the situation turned into a confrontation, deepening their conflict. In contrast, Pia simply recounted the events to her father, the undeniable facts that no one could argue with, like the sun rising in the east. For instance, she pointed out the obvious truth that her brother loved literature, but their father decided he had to become an engineer, and that he had committed suicide, with the letter as proof. No matter how big Virus's ego was, he could only remain silent and accept what Pia said. This shows that for those with high pride, like Virus, undeniable facts and concrete evidence hold far more power than emotional words or subjective personal judgments. It's essential to speak facts and proof with clear foundations like that letter to have any chance of awakening someone like Virus. Raju always sets high expectations for achieving good grades, so he frequently prays for divine help. However, while desiring success, Raju doesn't focus on the effort of sowing seeds. The pressure and time he spends on prayers and wearing rings significantly impact his studies. Chatur, on the other hand, shows extreme disappointment when he doesn't achieve top rankings, expressing his frustration with tears. Meanwhile, Rancho maintains a relaxed mindset and doesn't cling to outcomes. He never prays, but only focuses on planting seeds. Whether he ranks 2nd or 10th, Rancho isn't concerned because he learns for knowledge, not just for grades. When checking the scores, everyone else prays and even bribes the gods, scrambling to see the results. Afterward, Farhan and Raju feel disheartened, while Chatur cannot accept his ranking. Rancho, however, stays home, catching up on sleep after watching the World Cup the previous night, unconcerned about his exam results. Rancho once even laughed when he overheard Farhan's father lamenting his son's scores. At the graduation photo session, everyone is dressed formally. Chatur, even wearing a tie, emphasizes his value for grades and rankings. In contrast, although he ranks at the top, Rancho dresses comfortably, holding a Rubik's Cube with a carefree attitude, showing that he doesn't care about accolades or rankings. Previously, when he saw the astronaut pen, Chatur's eyes lit up, and he was visibly excited. When Virus asked who would fight to win the pen, Chatur was the first to raise his hand, followed by the other students. Rancho, however, scratched his head and pondered, asking deep questions, eventually leaving Virus speechless in front of the new students. Rancho understands that the core of the matter lies in planting seeds, while grades or awards are just measurements that reflect knowledge. Despite graduating at the top, Rancho didn't even take his diploma, because he kept a promise and was ready to succeed without it. He believes that knowledge and the ability to apply it are what truly bring about innovation. This is like entering a treasure room. Some take gold, others silver, and some diamonds, but a wise person would only choose the magic lamp. The lamp is the most valuable as it can grant all other treasures, making jewels unnecessary. Through this, we also better understand the law of cause and effect. To harvest, one must sow. Once you sow, a harvest is certain. What you sow determines what you reap, while when you reap depends on each person's circumstances. Points where Rancho might be wrong. First, is student suicide caused by educational pressure? Study pressure mainly comes from personal and family expectations. If the education system were the sole source of stress, then all students in the same environment would experience the same level of pressure, and all students would resort to suicide. However, each student has different levels of stress, primarily shaped by individual and familial expectations. These expectations lead to feelings of stress and disappointment when they aren't met. Rancho himself is a product of the educational system, yet he turns around to criticize it. Prestigious universities are for those with ability and resilience. Prestigious institutions often have high entry standards, which help filter out students capable of handling pressure and meeting demanding academic requirements. If entry were easy for everyone, these institutions would lose their reputation and competitive edge. Second, is chasing competition and grades a good thing? Everything has two sides. Grades and rankings create pressure, but also motivate students. For those who haven't found a passion for learning, grades provide a visible and concrete goal, giving them a reason to keep pushing forward, even if they don't feel genuine interest in the subject. Grades serve as a motivator to help students strive harder, but should be balanced and not the sole goal. Example: Chatur is willing to do anything to top the ranks. He studies 18 hours a day, takes memory-enhancing pills, and uses tricks to distract others. When I was in school, I sometimes stayed up until 2 or 3 a.m., even pulling all-nighters to study. Later in my career, I continued to work through the night. Now, looking back, I realized that sacrificing health and going to such extremes wasn't worth it. Success isn't a short sprint, it's a long-distance marathon. Third, pursue excellence, and will success follow? Not everyone who pursues their passion achieves success, as success requires practical skills and timely opportunities. Successful people often possess both elements, not just passion. Even with these, the timing of success depends on each person's circumstances. Not everyone achieves early success like Rancho, Farhan, Raju, and Chatur. Three Idiots is a cinematic work that is not only humorous and dramatic, but also deeply meaningful, encouraging everyone to live authentically without chasing fame or meeting others' expectations. The film emphasizes that happiness and success don't stem from grades or status, but from living with passion and genuinely learning. The lessons on kindness, friendship, courage, and a free-spirited approach to education convey valuable messages, urging us to reflect on the true worth of knowledge and life. Thank you for listening on iSage. It's a pleasure to share life experiences with you.